Animals showing emotion can be unexpected. This crying bear mom led the man to her dying cub, but what the bear did later was really shocking. Kyle loved nature as a kid. He enjoyed hiking and watching the animals in the zoo close to his home. He even studied to become a vet. Now he could help animals all the time. It was pretty amazing being able to treat pets and even some larger animals. He even got to work with some of the big animals in the zoo that he used to visit as a child. It was a full circle moment, but working as a vet could also be really difficult. He would get attached to animals that came to him. He saw many of them when they were young, but he couldn't always help all of them. There were times when he tried his very best, but he still lost the patient. He knew he should probably learn to keep his emotional distance from the animals in his care, but he just couldn't do it. Each time, his heart would break if he had a terrible outcome. But then he would see the next patient, and once again, he would start to care about them, just as he had always done for all the animals in his care. Still, after a few years of working as a vet, he realized that he needed somewhere he could go to rest and recuperate. He enjoyed going out in the city and having fun with his friends, but it wasn't the same as truly resting and recharging after a tough time. For that, he needed to get back to the way he had relaxed as a kid, by getting out in nature. There were a few hikes he could take close to the city, but none were long enough to truly relax. His practice was doing well, so he decided to reward himself with a tiny cabin in the woods. It didn't have much land connected to it, but it bordered a national park. That meant there was plenty of land for him to go for long hikes, and because it was a national park, no one would ever build on the land. He would always have his little sanctuary. He could just sit on his porch, look at the birds and eagles in the sky, or even watch deer and other animals passing by his home. It was just what he needed. He couldn't hear any cars or other city noises, just animals and the sounds of nature. He had a particularly long week when he decided to head to the woods. He had just put his weekend bag down in the cabin, pulled off his work gear, and put on hiking boots. Then he grabbed an apple and headed out for a walk. As he chewed, he breathed in the fresh air and listened to the sounds of the river in the distance. His heart had felt like it was beating too fast for days, but now it all slowed down, and he could start to think clearly again. He had walked for a while when he spotted a bear in his path. It was some way away, and he knew he needed to keep his distance, but the bear had other ideas. She came toward him, walking slowly in reverse to keep an eye on him. Kyle went back in the direction he had come from. He knew better than to try to run, but still the bear kept coming. Then another movement caught Kyle's eye. Next to the bear, a cub came out of the woods. This made the situation much more dangerous. A mommy bear can be far more aggressive than a single bear. He needed to be careful. With the bear still coming forward, Kyle realized that retreating wasn't working. He had to try a different approach. Putting his arms up in the air, he made himself big. Kyle made as much noise as possible, stomping his feet and shouting. Hopefully the brown bear would stop coming toward him. But something really strange happened. She didn't act like he expected at all. He had some experience caring for bears at the zoo, and he could see something else was wrong. The bear didn't retreat, as he would have expected, nor did she show any signs of the aggressive behavior he would expect if she were giving chase. It was one of the strangest animal encounters he had ever had. She sat down in the forest. Her baby was climbing all over her, but it almost looked like the bear mother was crying. She looked completely defeated. It touched Kyle's heart. He knew he was taking a big chance, but he got closer to the bear. Was she injured? She looked desperate, but he had never seen the behavior she was showing. Despite his experience, Kyle was in the dark. He could only go on his instincts and try to figure out what the bear needed. As he got closer, the bear got up, but she didn't come toward him. Instead, she started walking toward the river, looking behind her as if asking him to follow. Kyle was so curious about her strange actions that he just had to follow. Besides, it did seem like she was asking for help. Since helping animals was what he had dedicated his life to, there was no way he wouldn't help her if he could. The bear didn't even seem to notice when her babies started running around Kyle, trying to befriend him. She was completely focused on her destination. She led him to the river. Almost in the middle of the river was a bunch of fishing nets. The bear went up to it. At first, Kyle didn't understand why she was so interested in the nets, but then it started moving. Another baby bear was completely tangled up inside. Every time the water flowed over the net, the baby was submerged. It looked like the bear had tried to pull the nets apart, but they were such a big tangled mess that she couldn't free her cub. She needed the help of a human to save her baby. That was what she was so desperately trying to communicate to Kyle. There wasn't much time left. The little bear already wasn't very responsive. Kyle needed to get the cub free. He hadn't brought anything with him, not even a knife to cut the bear cub loose, and there was no time to run back home to get one. By the time he returned, it would be too late to save the little bear. He had to make another plan. Running down the riverbank, he checked all the rocks and found one with a sharp, jagged edge. Then he quickly swam to where the little bear was in the water. He cut through the ropes of the fishing nets. It took a while and left his hands bleeding and sore, but he couldn't stop. Finally, he made enough space to get the cub out of the tangled mess. Kyle pulled him out and swam him to the riverbank, the anxious mother close behind. The baby wasn't moving, but Kyle was determined. He started doing compressions, and soon the baby started to breathe. Exhausted, Kyle sat to one side. The little bear got up on shaky legs and ran to his mother and sibling. The mom hugged him close, and after a while, when she was sure he was completely fine, she let him play with his sibling. Then the little family went back into the forest. When Kyle finally got his strength back, he started walking home. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He would probably never see the family again, but he felt great about it, and he had an amazing story to tell his friends. He got home and took a warm shower. The cub might have been little, but he was still heavy. Kyle's muscles were on fire, but now he could rest. The next morning, he was sitting on his porch with a cup of coffee. After his adventurous hike the previous day, he was content to just sit and relax. But he couldn't believe what happened next. He was shocked when the bear and her cubs came into view. The family had come to visit him. For a long time after that, the mother bear, and later the cub he had saved, would visit him whenever he was at his little cabin in the woods. Thank you for watching. Join us again for more inspiring stories.